Croeso I Just a Talking. Welcome to Just a Ticket, the Transport for Wales podcast. Today we're in our Pennaeth Perfformiad headquarters and I'm really pleased to be joined by Adam Terry and Jo Foxall, and we're going to discuss everything rail, performance and customer satisfaction and customer experience. Adam, do you want to just introduce yourself first, please?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I'm Adam Terry. I'm Head of Performance at TfW Rail.
And Jo?
I'm Jo Foxall. I'm the Customer Experience Director at Transport for Wales.
We've had you both on the podcast before, I think, but welcome back. I've got a few questions for you both and then we can chat about a few things together. Adam, let's talk about rail performance. It's a controversial topic, gets a lot of press.
Absolutely.
I'm always on the phone to you sometimes asking what these figures mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is rail performance?
Well, aside from making a lot of graphs, we do like a graph. It is ultimately about delivering the core service to our customers. So we primarily measure two things when it comes to rail performance, punctuality and reliability. And when I say that, I mean punctuality in terms of did the service arrive on time?
Yeah.
So our primary measure for that is a metric called on time to 3. So did the service arrive at its timetable destination within 3 minutes of its timetable time? And then reliability is all about cancellations. So did that service arrive at all? So we measure a percentage basis for both. How many of our services on a daily basis arrive within 3 minutes of that intended arrival time? And then how many of our services were cancelled in comparison to that base timetable? So there's multiple different other ways and metrics in which everything flows into that. We break down the constituent parts around why things might be going wrong or why things might be going right. But those are our core metrics, on time to 3 and cancellations.
So it's basically, is your train turned up? And if it has turned up, is it on time?
Correct.
Which is what our customers want.
Absolutely, yeah.
What are the different national measurements that sort of measure us and how we measure ourselves against other train operating companies?
Yeah, so those are the consistent metrics. They're relatively standard across the industry, so everyone measures the same thing so that we can consistently benchmark ourselves against our peers and see how we're delivering for our customers. There are multiple different constituent parts that flow into that as well in terms of how we assess our performance and break it down to an individual basis to derive where we're going wrong or indeed right. So to explain the process from start to finish, so every single train that's delayed by more than 3 minutes, so 3 minutes is our threshold, requires a reason to be investigated. So as soon as we hit that 3 minutes worth of delay, there are a team of people across the whole industry, including within our own organisation, that investigates why. So as soon as we can derive why those trains have been delayed by 3 minutes or more, we can then take that data, that's our source of improvement ultimately, to derive how we can make things better. And that's where the magic happens from our side of things. We turn that into graphs, dashboards, all sorts of data information flows that tells us a story. And then when we know where we're going wrong, where we're going right, what are the reasons for us losing performance in terms of cancellations and delay minutes across the course of a day, we can then put in place plans to try and improve things and deliver a better service for our customers.
Give us an example of them sort of things you'd find would affect the train.
Could be anything. There are dozens and dozens of different reasons in which we attribute those delays. It could be anything from, a tree on the line. It could be trespass on the railway. So there are an extremely wide and varied number of reasons across the whole network and across the whole organisation as to why things are delayed. But ultimately, it's our job to assess that, measure it, and derive where we can improve things based on where we might be going wrong.
And I guess in Wales, from experience, within that season now of sort of storm season, that has a big impact then on your overall performance.
100%, yeah. And everything is intrinsically linked. I like to think of the railway as a system. So if one part of it functions the way it shouldn't be, if one part starts to go wrong, it starts to impact upon everything. A great example there you've used, we're in storm season at the moment. We've had a few big storms over the last few weeks. If we get high winds, extreme weather, that could well mean that there's a tree on the line somewhere. If that tree is on the line and one of our trains ends up striking it, it could mean that damages our fleet. So the extreme weather has impacted the infrastructure, it's then impacted the fleet. It could then mean that obviously, one of our train crew has been in a distressing situation and then needs to take time off work as a result. So that means we no longer have the right people in the right place to deliver our service. So everything is linked together in terms of that overall system of performance on the railway. So it's our job to make sure we get every part of that right. Because if it doesn't function correctly, it can start to flow in other areas of the organisation and start affecting our ability to deliver service.
And when you sort of identify them problems, you say you provide solutions. So give us an example of what would them solutions look like?
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be timetable based, it could be technology based, it could be a business case for a piece of investment to improve our fleet, our technology, our train crew accommodation, the level of people that we need in various places of the network. So yeah, that's the important part. That's where we really dig into the detail to try and derive where we can improve things. There are a number of quick wins. You can adjust timetables here or there, you can make tweaks to various bits of technology to give people better information or function better from a fleet perspective as well, but then if you really get a lot of data trending over a long period of time that tells you you've got a problem that you've got a big opportunity to fix, it could well be that we build a business case and require a more significant level of investment to improve things.
So the golden question, how is TFW performing? What's our stats say?
We're still not where we want to be, is the honest answer, but we are on an improving trajectory. So if I were to take us back over the last 3 years and look at our primary metrics, so I mentioned our primary metrics are on time to 3, where we deliver in within 3 minutes of our intended journey time. If we were to go back 3 years from now, we were around 76%. Step forward a year to last year, we were around 80%. Now, where we are right now, our average over the course of the last 12 months is around 83, 84%. So we'd like to be closer to 90. We'd like to have a number that begins with a 9 as our performance level. Not quite there at the moment, but really pleasing to see that we are on that improving trajectory.
And our CVL, South Wales Metro Network, that's got better figures again.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. So those numbers encompass our whole organisation, our whole geography across the whole of Wales. There are various parts of the network in which we're achieving better than that. So the metro area, the Valleys network is a good example. We are regularly hitting punctuality figures in the 90s there. That said, there are other areas of the network in which we're not performing quite as well. So I think our job is to try and balance that and make sure we're achieving our objectives across the whole patch.
Where are the parts of the network where we don't sort of achieve the best figures?
So we have got a few rural parts of our network which are a little bit more vulnerable to the type of things that we've discussed already in terms of extreme weather. Yeah, a few single line sections across the network as well, which means obviously you don't have the luxury of trains being able to pass each other unless they're at a specific point of that network. So if I were to look at the extremes of West Wales, the heart of Wales, up on the Cambrian coast up towards Machynlleth and Pwllheli, there is room for improvement there.
And you've touched upon it the last 3 years. I was just going to ask you what sort of journey we've been on since TFW was established, sort of externally in 2018. What's been the sort of trend since then? Yeah,
it's been transformative, really. So performance has improved. If we were to look back to the Arriva Trains Wales days, there was a lot wrong with the Arriva franchise in various different ways. They were actually performing relatively well in terms of the overall performance statistics. I think the important context since we've been on this journey as TFW is that we've transformed things in terms of fleets, customer experience, infrastructure, and the timetable is such an important part of performance, the timetable. We know it's not entirely about performance statistics when it comes to customer experience. Regularity of service and the type of trains and the capacity on those trains is just as important. We've increased our timetable by around 30% since the franchise has come in. We're running more services to more places on additional days, longer days, so there's much more of an opportunity to enable people to travel more sustainably.
Yeah, and that sort of leads into my next question, is sort of what are the factors that can influence performance? And as you said, if we increase in our timetable, increase in services, that's going to have an effect on the performance figures as well, because we're running more services.
100%. I think if you look, there are all sorts of really great things that we've done since the franchise has changed, and there are all sorts of things that impact customer experience. But if you were to look at it operationally, there are sort of 3 fundamental things that you need to deliver a consistent railway service. There's a timetable that works, so the number of services that you deliver. There's the rolling stock, so having enough trains and fleet to deliver that service, and there's the train crew, having enough drivers and conductors to be able to deliver that service. Now, there's been a long lead in terms of planning to this to be able to position ourselves in the best place to deliver that service. But as you increase the number of trains you run, as you increase the number of stops in the timetable, and you increase the number of trains and the number of train crew that it takes to deliver that service, absolutely, it becomes more difficult. So, yeah.
And you've touched upon new trains. We have sort of transformed the network and it's still ongoing. Again, golden question, the new trains, they must have had a positive effect.
Yeah, they really have, yeah. I mean, aside from the obvious customer experience benefit of running more modern, more efficient trains, think of them like a new car. Ultimately, you know, they're much more efficient at accelerating and braking. So the ability to deliver the tighter timetables is really assisted by the fact that they're quick off the mark and they can brake more efficiently. All of our new trains have much wider doors as well, so the ability for people to get on and off quickly and minimise our dwell times at stations is much more efficient. And a lot of our new trains have got level boarding as well, so if you have got people with accessibility requirements or prams,
easier to get
getting them on and off that train, you know, as quickly as possible to aid the efficient delivery of service as well is you know, it's a huge opportunity that just wasn't there before, so they've made a massive difference.
Great. Joe, so Adam's got the performance sorted, the customers must be happy.
Happier, definitely.
Happier, yeah, okay. Let's talk about customer experience or customer satisfaction. It's got lots of different ways to explain.
Yeah.
Firstly, what does that mean?
So customer experience is the end-to-end journey that customers experience with us. So from their first point of contact with us all the way through to getting to their destination, and if something happens that, you know, something goes wrong, then how we support them with that as well.
And again, similar questions to what I asked Adam. How do we measure customer satisfaction?
So we've got a number of kind of internal and external measures that we monitor. So internally, we look at kind of complaint numbers, complaints per 100,000 journeys, and we have a kind of metric that we work to. And we do regular sentiment analysis. So when customers are talking to us, what are they saying and what are their problems and what are their challenges? And then we work externally across the UK in a number of different ways. So we have the Transport Focus Rail Operator Scorecard, which looks at all TOCs across the UK. And then we have the Rail Customer Experience Survey, which monitors customer experience across all TOCs.
And what are, again, some examples when customers are not happy with the experience? What are the key things that come up?
And the main challenges for customers is consistency of service delivery. So, you know, that reliability and consistency of service, getting to where they want to go. I mean, ultimately, that's why customers use us. And then, you know, it's delays and cancellations cause challenges. Staff can make or break a journey. When, you know, inevitably things will go wrong. Storms affect us. We have no control over certain things. But how our staff play their part can really impact how the customers experience our services.
So a bad experience due to a train being late or not turning up can be turned into a good customer experience if the member of staff's really good.
Absolutely. If customers are kept informed, if the information is clear and consistent, that can really, really turn the experience around.
And similar to what I asked Adam about how TFW is performing with the performance stats, where are we sort of with our customer experience stats?
So it's really, really pleasing to see that the changes and improvements to performance are naturally translating through to improved customer experience. We're seeing a real kind of improving picture in terms of our sentiment analysis. So customer contact volumes have come down on our socials, and our positive sentiments are trending up, which is great. And then in terms of kind of the national measures, we're seeing quite significant improvements. So in the Transport Focus monitoring that we do regularly, in the last survey we were marked at 91%, and that's against an 87% industry average. So we're kind of trending above the average, and we're number 4 rail TOC in the UK.
Fourth overall, yeah. I suppose, having been involved in the industry, you know, for a period of years, they do fluctuate though, and different things can impact that.
Absolutely, but I think it's really important to note that actually this is our most challenging part of the year in terms of service delivery, and our scores are really good at this point. So, you know, I think we can take some real good news stories from that.
And then, you know, since 2018, since TFW was created and publicly launched, what have we seen? What's the story over over the sort of 7-year period?
I think similarly to what Adam was saying, you know, it was a real challenging period for our customers as we took over the franchise. We went through a significant period of transformation, particularly on CVL, where we saw a lot of blocks and rail replacement, and that's difficult for our customers to navigate, really. So I would say probably 2023 was our most challenging year in terms of customer experience.
Lots of metro infrastructure works.
Absolutely. And, you know, from that point, things have kind of crept up, and we're seeing real improvements in customer satisfaction.
Sort of short-term pain for long-term gain, I think, that's the...
Absolutely, yeah.
And any sort of challenges, customer experience challenges we faced? Is it mainly just the sort of infrastructure changes and how that's impacting the network, and I suppose lots of rail replacement that puts people in?
Yeah, absolutely. It's change, isn't it? People don't like change, and, you know, I think even introducing new timetables, whilst longer term is of benefit, it's a change to how people travel, and people have to learn how to you know, navigate this, and you know, longer term it is positive, but we have to support customers through that process. So customer information is key. Back to staff, you know, having the information that they need to be able to support customers being really, really important.
Getting the new trains in, the brand new trains in, that must have though had a positive impact on how customers feel about the service.
Absolutely.
I love travelling on them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's a real visual of how we are transforming the services. You know, a timetable change perhaps doesn't mean that much in terms of, you know, the visual, but a brand new train and the comfort and you know, improved journey experience that gives, there's a real visual and visible change.
Yeah, I suppose the difficult thing is, though, even if we've got these brand new swanky trains running, if they don't turn up on time or they're not reliable, that's what it impacts the customer experience overall, really. People want them simple things to be running on time and picking them up and knowing where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as Adam's acknowledged, we've still got a way to go, but it's really moving in the right direction. And, you know, the combination of the new fleet and the improved services is going to make a real difference for our customers.
And there's some other things outside sort of Adam's world around price, cost of travel, sort of advanced ticketing, these different deals we have on, that must influence how customers feel about the service as well.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, the different ways to pay with pay as you go, you know, all new initiatives that are making the services more accessible to our customers. You know, they do bring their own challenges. Customers need a bit more hand-holding through some of these changes, new initiatives that they've not experienced before, and that does drive up customer contact. But, you know, in all that, they are good, positive things, and we have been noted as a real value for money in terms of what we do by the national surveys.
It must be a sort of cycle when we implement something that's new, like pay as you go. It's a great change. But then you've got that period of like a teething period where it is difficult for customers to get used to, which I should imagine contact goes perhaps higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it drops back down and people really start getting the benefit then once they know how to use the new systems you put in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, the challenges with Pay As You Go particularly is it's not a Wales-wide initiative. You know, there are boundaries and customers kind of understanding that they need to tap on and tap off in the right places, and they need to tap on and tap off with consistent devices, be that a phone or a card. You know, we do see some challenges with that. We work really hard with the comms team to kind of really share those educational messages to kind of help customers with that.
Great. So I suppose a bit of an intro into both your worlds there, both interlinked. I suppose what's the next step? Adam, if you go first, what's the next step for rail performance? And then Jo, how does that impact your world? And I guess they both sort of they work sort of with each other, really.
Well, yeah, I think to answer your latter point there, it's absolutely imperative that our teams are intrinsically working together consistently, because when it comes to the statistics that I mentioned at the start there, all trains are equal. You know, they're either on time or they're not. They're either cancelled or they're not. But we know that there are certain trains, certain issues, certain problems, certain times of day, certain locations that will enable or trigger much greater levels of feedback and customer customer sentiment, either positive or negative, than other trains. So it's really important that we are targeting the right areas for improvement and working
you work together on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we produce quite a lot of customer data that feeds into the performance teams, just so that they can see how different kind of cancellations and delays and other issues impact certain customer groups. So it's really important information.
I think that's really important as well, because people need to know the science that goes on behind the stats.
Yeah.
But to answer your first point, so a significant amount of milestones coming up over the next few weeks, months and years. So we've already talked about timetables. There are going to be some timetable enhancements coming up. So complete change of timetable in North Wales coming this May. Then there'll be a timetable enhancements in other areas of the country over the course of the remainder of this year and into next year as well, in particular the metro area, with services increasing in terms of frequency as well. We've got a brand new fleet of trains in the Class 398 tram trains, which are all on Taftswell Depot at the moment, due to enter service in the spring and summer of this year. We've got some additional Class 197s and new train for the mainline destinations, which have been rolled out to a part of northwest Wales that they're not in service on at the moment, and ultimately it's around enabling more locally led decision making when it comes to performance improvement through the local T networks that we're investing in at the moment as well. So a huge amount going on. Like I said, we're still nowhere near where we want to be, but there are a lot of big milestones to come up, which might throw some challenges in there along the way.
As I was going to say, if there's a lot of change coming, that because they are the first trains going into service, you're going to have teething problems. That's going to impact performance.
Yeah, it will be.
And Joe, that'll obviously impact your world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I suppose customers and the public need to see the longer term plan is hopefully once we've got them in running, all them things should improve.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you're right, James. I think we will see a slight dip in one or two areas when it comes to performance over the next few weeks and months as we adjust to new timetables and new rolling stock. But it's our job to make sure that we minimise that risk as much as possible. And then in the longer term, maintain that steady upward trajectory of performance improvement. It's imperative to our customers that we deliver a reliable service that they can trust, and it's our job to get them there ultimately.
And Josh, what's for you? What's the next step in sort of customer engagement, customer satisfaction?
So it's all about supporting our customers through those changes. So we've got kind of the rollout of Network North and new kind of pay-as-you-go zones, and naturally will generate customer contact. All of the changes to the service will also do that. So it's about how we support our customers through that process, making sure that we've got people on the ground who can support that, and then working with Adam's team, kind of feeding back the all the responses that we get from our customers, so that we can inform those all that decision making and make sure that we're making those decisions with the customer in mind.
Great. No, it's been really interesting to talk to you both, and because it is both really important topics, and from a media perspective we get lots of questions on different stats, and I think sometimes people don't understand what goes on behind the stats, so hopefully you've explained a little bit about that today, and your team got some really good news coming up also.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. For the second year in a row, we've just won the Silver Whistle Award, which celebrates the best improvement in regional on-time performance across all train operators. So yeah, we were delighted to win it last year, but to achieve that recognition twice in a row is testament to all the hard work that's gone on across the organisation to deliver for our customers. So yeah, absolutely delighted.
What message would you give the customers before we finish off from head performance, Adam? What would sort of be a message to customers?
My main message to customers really would be that we are absolutely committed to delivering the best possible service that we can, and there are a huge amount of mechanics behind the scenes that go into analysing and ultimately deriving improvement plans to deliver for you. So yeah, we've got some milestones that we want to hit, but ultimately we want to push those metrics as far up as we possibly can. So I'd ideally love to be in a world in which our on time to through rate is well into the 90s and we're minimising cancellation rates below 2%. I think we've got a way to go there, so that still could be a couple of years away yet, but we're absolutely committed to trying to get
in the right direction.
Absolutely, yeah.
And yourself, Joe?
Just keep telling us what you think and what you want, and we can feed that information back into the business to make sure that we're making those customer-centred decisions. The teams are working really hard to deliver and improve those services. It's just going to take some time, and we'll be there to support you on the way.
Great, well done both. Keep up the good work. Thanks for coming on, and we'll perhaps have you on again.
Thanks.
Talk about.
Cheers.